Before we go much further with the new Prairie Fire, I thought it would be a wise idea to get some perspective and stories from the longtime host of the original Prairie Fire, which aired from 1992 to 2008. Alison Davis was the producer and host for most of that time, and she sets a very high standard. She's won 7 Emmy Awards, and she's currently a lecturer of journalism at the University of Illinois. Alison Davis, thanks for joining us in Prairie Fire.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I really appreciate this.
No problem. Tell me a little bit about how Prairie Fire started and how your role kind of developed over time.
Well, Prairie Fire was started by Jeff Cunningham at WYLL TV, and he chose the name because of how when there is a prairie fire, it burns away the prairie grasses and exposes the roots. And we thought the show would really do the same thing, kind of helping us explore our deep roots in Central Illinois and create new growth. And I was very lucky. After I graduated from college, I started working here part-time, and I became Jeff's production assistant. So we went on tours all over Central Illinois, and it was just the two of us creating these programs. And I did that for about a year with him, and then he moved to Wisconsin, and I applied for his job, and that's when I took over as producer of the show.
So how did you take what he had done originally and kind of make it your own thing?
When Jeff and I were doing the show, our budget was really non-existent. So our plan was, as far as we could drive in a day and get back, that was where we could go, because we couldn't really travel anywhere to do the show. And I
so I do have to emphasize,
yes,
it is a very small crew of people doing this.
Very small crew of people, yes. At the beginning, it was just two of us. When I started doing the show, a lot of times it would be just me. I would go out and do the story. Later, I had Tim Harton was helping me with it, and that was really amazing because he is such a talented videographer and storyteller that he really helped push the production levels of the show, and also created some of my favorite shows, like a profile on recording artist Mark Rubel, and some other wonderful stories that Tim did. So we really, in the last years that I worked on the show, we really worked as a team on the productions.
How do you choose what to cover? I mean, what are the elements you're looking for in a good story?
Well, for me, I'm always looking for a great character, and I want someone that feels comfortable with me, and I work on that to make them feel comfortable with me. And I don't think they have to be a larger-than-life character, because I do think everybody has a story, and that's my job as a storyteller, is to be able to mine them for their story and to be able to present it in an informative and entertaining way. And also, of course, visuals. Some stories are lucky because everything falls into place. They're an artist or someone who has they're a really great personality, and then they also have incredible visuals. They're creating things that we can record. Historical pieces, always a lot harder to do because you don't have as many visuals to work with, and those require a lot more time.
Craziest stories from the road, wacky stories, unexpected events that happened to you while you were doing shoots, go.
Well, I will say one of probably the craziest stories we did was the World Freefall Convention up in Rantoul, which was a national convention for people that love to jump out of airplanes. So we went up to Rantoul, and it was a party scene with these people. They were free spirits, and it was like spring break for them. And I remember walking around shooting visuals, and my cameraman, Julius Bolton, at the time kept putting his camera down. And I said, "Why are you putting your camera down?" And he's like, "The women kept flashing me." So it was very challenging in that respect, but we did get some great B-roll. And then at the end of the day, the director said, would you like to jump out of an airplane? And I looked at him and immediately said, no. I had small children at the time, and I just couldn't imagine my husband at the time telling them, yes, your mother passed away jumping out of an airplane with a camera. So my cameraman, Julius, immediately jumped up and said, I will do it. So he did it. He jumped out of the airplane in a tandem jump, filmed the whole thing, and we used that in the story. So it was a really fun way to end the story.
Your favorite piece of all time. Name a few.
Yeah, one of my favorite pieces was on the Sangamon Ordnance Plant in Illiopolis, Illinois. And this was one of the largest manufacturers of ammunition during World War II. Most of it, all the workers were women. So it became very progressive. They had dormitory housing for the women that were working there. They even had childcare. I was able to talk to some of the former employees, and one thing they were telling me is how all of their hair turned red because of their exposure to the chemicals that they were working with all day. They all became these redheads. Another story that really inspired me was doing a story on demolition derby driver Tracy Neiman. When I met her, she's about my age, and I was blown away by her being one of the only female demolition derby drivers in this whole part of the state. And she was winning, she was really successful, she took it very seriously. We followed her around to the county fairs. I just remember the heat, you know, those hot county fair days, the noise. We had an old Chevy Suburban that we would drive around to film with, and I remember getting up on the roof of there trying to get shots of what was happening during the event and getting to immerse myself in this whole subculture that I really didn't know a lot about. And working in video, you know, is a really male profession, and I saw her in a very male world, and she was very competitive and she had such a great attitude that she really inspired me.
Alison Davis, thank you so much for stopping by and giving us your stories and your history with Prairie Fire.
Thank you so much for having me, and great job with the show.
Thank you. And here, without further ado, is Alison's story about demo derby driver Tracy Neiman.
I don't know, I've always been a tomboy, daddy's little girl. Went fishing, hunting. Used to drive my grandmother nuts. I didn't want to wear a dress, didn't want to go shopping. I'd rather been with the guys. Just something I've done since I was little, and it's stuck with me all my life. Grandma still doesn't like it, but
it's part mud, part guts, and part insanity. And it's one of the most popular sports in the Midwest. The demolition derby has long been thought of as a man's world of crunching auto bodies and loud engines. But within this sea of masculinity is an island of pink.
I get a lot of static from a lot of people being the only girl out here. A lot of guys don't like it. Last year, after I won the Champaign County Fair, I manage an auto parts store, and the place next to us is like a quick lube oil change. And a guy come in there right away Saturday morning and was going on and on to the manager of the quick lube place about this girl won the Champaign County Fair last night, and that wasn't right. She should be home barefoot and pregnant. And that upset me. Told them if that guy ever come in there again to call me because I was coming over.
She's a good driver, real good driver. I was quite impressed the first time I saw her.
A lot of guys are out to get her just because she's a woman, but she's one of the best drivers I've ever seen. I think she deserves what she got championship last year. She needs to get it again this year.
Tracy spent the last 10 years racing, and before that she grew up around the track, watching her father Les, who's a 30-year veteran of the demolition derby.
That was the only thing she ever did listen to that. Tell her to be home at midnight, she wouldn't show up till 3 in the morning, but when it come to work on cars, she was always there.
For the first couple years, when I was younger, Dad wouldn't let me run with the guys. I strictly stuck to the powder puffs, and after about 2 years of that, I got fed up with that. So I convinced him to let me drive with the guys, so he let me start at Ford County and Iroquois County fairs, because they're the smaller tracks and know a lot more people there. But now, like I said, I've been around this since I was a little kid. I know everybody that's at the racetrack. You get to the smaller county fairs and stuff, you know everybody, and it's kind of tough. I'd rather go out and race somewhere I didn't know anybody.
Make the decision, Tracy. It's your car.
Tracy's other mentor is former driver Scott Kelly. Scott now works with Tracy as her chief mechanic.
She's better than I ever thought about being. She's very intelligent. She makes the right decisions. She's not perfect, but she's not too bad. And she's the '93 Illinois State Champion, so I think that speaks for itself. I was never skeptical because I could see the desire, and she was willing to put in the work, and the driving's the fun part, the being on center stage. It's the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of preparation that it takes to win, to build a championship car. She does get nervous, but I think that's more that her intensity's there because she wants to do well. I think she feels like she has an added burden on her shoulders being a female, but and I think she does. I think the burden is there, but I think that makes victory that much sweeter when you do it, because we play by their rules. There's no, you can run with the girls and then you can come and play with the boys. We run by the men's rules against the men with the same officials, and probably they're a little harder on her, the officials, so that they don't appear to show favoritism. And when she wins, that makes it that much better.
Scott has taught me you can do anything you want to do. All you gotta just put your mind to it. The year before last, it was an okay year. Like I said, I won the state championship and took third at the Hoosier Dome and stuff. But after coming here last year and getting demolished by my friends, we went to Crescent City. I did make it to the feature, but I had to fight all the guys from Crescent City up there, so my car was literally destroyed, and I was, kind of disappointed about that. It was nothing you could do about it. That's the name of racing. But went into Champaign, and Scott says, "I've got this feeling, Tracy, you can do it." And he says, don't think about it, just go out there and drive, and you can do it. And it's exactly what I did. I just kind of like blocked everything else out and just concentrated on what was happening out there on the track, and it helped.
Tracy and Scott say it takes a month to prepare a car for battle. Before the race, officials inspect each car to ensure that any modifications are within Derby guidelines.
We've got a 350 Chevrolet engine with 283 heads, which allow the engines to run cooler. We've got aluminum intake, which allows the engines to run cooler, and the exhaust up through the hood for two reasons. One, that makes it louder and the crowd likes it. Two, if she kills the engine, she can start it easier. We've got a radiator strapped in with rubber straps to keep it from moving, an extra large fan to keep it cool, and for safety we've got the engine mounts welded down solid so that the engine can't rock and lock the car with the accelerator down, and you could lose the brakes and get into the crowd. Then we've got 14-ply trailer tires on the front, which these are about 14 years old and been flat once. And on the rear we've got forklift tires that have been grooved with a Sawzall so they get extra traction. Then we've got a separate ignition system inside with the ignition not routed through the car at all. We've got our battery box inside. Our shifter only has 2 speeds. Pull it back to go forward, push it up to go reverse, and neutral. And then we've got the fuel tank in the back. We've got a fuel cell out of a stock car which has a plastic bladder on the inside and an aluminum can on the outside with a rollover vent so that if she does get rolled over, that no gas can run out on her. And then we've got 1 bar that's legal at this track to protect the gas tank. And that's basically what we do to prepare them, besides removing all the glass and anything else that can come out. Ours, we usually get 2 or 3 runs. We had one we had 8 runs out of last year, and we didn't win with it till the 7th time. So that's the longest, but it was only about 8 foot long and about 3 foot wide when we were finished.
Please try to stay off the driver's door. Looks like you're going to hit a door, put on the brakes and try to get it stopped. We'll go along with you. If we feel it's an intentional hit, you're out of here. We're not here to get no one hurt. If your car catches on fire, we have to put up the red flags to stop the show, bring the fire department out, put the fire out. It's over. We're not allowed to run you again. If you just backfire, something like that, and keep going, no problem. All right? You lose your brakes, for God's sake, shut it down, guys. This thing has always been real close here. I hate to see you get loose and get into a fence and hurt somebody.
As soon as I climb in the car, it's like I'm okay, everything's better. I just concentrate on different places to hit and stuff like that, and watching my front end and my back end of my car.
07, the first car in, Sean Schlickman. 5150, Barry Schlickman, followed by car number 4, Tracy Neiman. Tracy, I believe, is the only lady that's entered tonight, and she's done this before.
The object of a demolition derby is simple. keep driving. Derby drivers try to be one of the last 3 cars running in a heat. Then the winners of each heat compete in the feature or finals. At the Ford County Fair, Tracy is disappointed she doesn't make it to the feature.
The first couple years, I'll admit, they gave me a break. Now that I proved to them I could do it, there's no more breaks. Do have to fight harder. Another one of the reasons besides being a girl is, like I said, with my dad and Scott's reputation. I mean, they were very good drivers, and, you know, they won a lot of the fairs, and it's just, you know, I'd like myself would like to do that, and people are gonna, you know, they've been beat up by my dad and Scott before, so they're not gonna let me beat them up. I've really got to fight a little bit harder.
But even when she doesn't win, Tracy leaves an impression with the Derby fans. Whether they like it or not, there is a woman on the track, and Tracy would like to see more.
I got a few little girls that follow me, and when they're old enough, they're gonna drive. And when I decide to have children, I hope I have a girl because I want her to drive.